It's 1995, and things aren't all that rosy at one infinite loop. Sales are in freefall, clones are saturating the market, and the development of a modern operating system is going nowhere. The story has been told many a time, so today on YesterYears Macs, we're going to delve into a product that I think defines this low point in Apple's history rather well. The PowerBook 5300. Online resources refer to Apple's first PowerPC laptop as a complete dog, a compromised Mac that further harmed Apple as a brand prior to the second coming. Very little about this machine escapes criticism, and often referenced is its abysmal build quality, poor software stability, at least initially, and missing features that wouldn't have been such a big deal a year or two beforehand, but had no business not being there in '95. The product number 5300 was a suboptimal choice as well, with the entry-level all-in-one desktop possessing the same figure, and introduced in the same month. Well, I picked up one of these recently, the 5300C model, so we'll take a stab at figuring out what it's like. Working 5300s aren't common, but they're not especially valuable, with this example setting me back 80 quid in late 2018. This particular machine is in relatively decent condition, and from what I've gathered from the contents of the hard disk, was originally in use at Oxford University for 4 years. Externally, it's flawless. However, there was one major issue that I'm glad I caught before it got worse. The story behind this issue is that Sony produced some defective batteries, which decided it would be fun to self-combust. It wasn't quite a Samsung Galaxy Note 7 affair, as one was at a factory and the other's at an employee's house, but the lithium-ion power packs that had been shipped with some of the PowerBooks were, as a result, recalled and switched out for less capable nickel hydride ones. As a result of this high-profile recall, the 5300 supposedly became widely associated with fiery doom by the media and potential purchasers. So what's this got to do with the aforementioned issue? Well, in contrast to all the old lithium-ion batteries I have lying around, this one started to leak. Now, it doesn't concern me too much, it's not like it would have held a charge anyway, and the only component it seems to have damaged is the battery connector itself. It got a bit of a clean, but after this video, it's not going back in here unless I attempt to remove the cells first. Anyway, the 5300 came in 4 model designations, with the most obvious difference between them being the screen. The 5300 had a 640 by 480 monochrome passive matrix. The 5300CX had one of these in colour. This 5300C has a colour active matrix in it, and the high-end 5300CE bumped the resolution of the active matrix up to 800 by 600, and coupled that with a slightly faster processor. The active matrix panels are much more desirable over the passive. Here's a comparison. I can barely see the mouse move around on a passive. As far as the case is concerned, it's fairly unremarkable, although one bizarre feature are these spring-loaded legs, which prop the back of the laptop up ever so slightly. Earlier models had them rotating around the edge, and later ones disposed of this sort of thing completely. I personally think that they're pretty stupid, almost funny in fact. The sight of these spindly little nubs holding up a thick old laptop feels very mismatched, like putting ostrich legs on an elephant. I bet a lot of them snapped off. This case is shared with its cheaper 68LC040 based sibling, the PowerBook 190, which can be upgraded to a 5300 with a logic board swap. The build quality is derided almost anywhere you look, with reported design flaws in the hinges, ribbon cables, the screen itself, and power supply socket which has a nasty habit of snapping off. I've read a few reports of the floppy drive jamming as well. Built-in RAM ranged from 8 to 16 megabytes, with a slot available to upgrade it to a maximum of 64. Hard drive options were 500 megs, 700 megs and 1.1 gigs, and a video card for output to an external monitor is also present. Look at the size of that. These machines were the first PowerBook to feature swappable bays, with the battery and floppy drive easily removable in order to insert something else. As far as I'm aware, however, there wasn't much choice. Just zip drives, magneto-optical drives, a power supply for those that didn't want to lug the power brick around, and a lump of hollow plastic to save weight if the floppy drive wasn't needed. Apple did design and prototype a mini CD drive, which can be seen in the computer's appearance in Independence Day, but it never made it to market. The key thing it can't house is a regular-sized CD drive, which, considering this was released in August of 1995, was a very strange omission indeed. The aim was to make this PowerBook nice and compact, which to me seems largely unnecessary, considering the existence of the 200 and 2000 series of the sub-notebook-sized PowerBooks. Here is a ThinkPad that was sold in a similar era, admittedly only overlapping the last 3 months of the 5300's time on the market, but it's the closest I've got. No bays here. To get at the components, the keyboard swings up like a car bonnet. It has a very similar footprint, but found the space for an internal CD drive just fine, demonstrating that it is totally doable. In order to read a CD with the 5300 then, you will need an external drive, and a SCSI cable. Not just any SCSI cable, mind you, as the port is square, requiring a dongle in order to connect to anything. Old habits die hard, eh? Well, in fairness, no one would have wanted this on the back of their laptop. But the monitor port is less excusable, with an obscure port that worked natively with nothing, requiring another dongle to become an obscure port that worked natively with very little. The back of the unit also features an ADB port for a keyboard and mouse, a combined modem and printer port, audio in and out, and infrared. There are 2 PC card slots on the side too. Inside you get a single button clicker, a small trackpad, and a decent enough keyboard. The top right button powers it on, and upon its depression will slowly boot, courtesy of what seems to be considered a particularly slow IDE hard disk. It sits in a cradle under the trackpad and can be switched out for a compact flash drive with the right converter. This one here is from a parts donor I picked up. The rest of it was absolutely trashed, and wouldn't you know it, the battery had leaked on that too. Seriously, if you have an old nickel hydride battery in anything, get them the hell out of there. Corrosion on this one was even worse. The fiddliest thing about taking this machine apart is the keyboard. The 2 sockets are pretty wedged in, and difficult to keep open during insertion. The reason I picked up the dead 5300 was for the keyboard, as the living one has a diagonal strip of dead keys, and I don't think it's serviceable, although do hit me up in the comments if I'm mistaken. The other issue this thing has is that it can't boot with a keyboard and mouse in the ADB port, and something in the SCSI port at the same time. A plausible explanation for this is that the components aren't getting enough power due to old capacitors, so like every other old Mac, the caps will at some point need replacing. So, how do you get stuff on it? Well, initially when I got this machine I had 2 options. I could break the files down into multiple floppies with split and join, slowly copy them across one by one, and reassemble them on the other side, or I could line up the infrared port with another Mac and try faffing around with file sharing and the chooser. I actually gave this a shot, but the IR talk protocol that this uses was so slow, I abandoned that idea and purchased a compact flash card for the PCMIA slot. This seems to be working out pretty well. Stick the apps and games on the card via another Mac, and plug it in as the thing boots. Users will need to plug these in every time they turn it on, as the first thing the machine does upon startup is eject it. The eject is spring-loaded, and the first time it popped out I jumped out of my skin. I've tried to demonstrate a decent cross-section of what this machine can run throughout the video, but it's actually a very small slice of the complete macOS library. Its emulation of 68K code is awful.
Oh, it runs like
So unless the game is PowerPC native, chances are it's going to run very badly. It can just about do early 3D, I've got Quake running as well as Future Cop, albeit in a letterbox resolution, and it's relatively competent with shareware of its era as well. Games of course weren't really what this was built for, with ClarisWorks and Microsoft Office probably being the typical use for one of these things. Upon release, the 5300 came with macOS 7.5.2. This was supposedly very unstable, and it's recommended that users bump it up to 8.1 to solidify the laptop's software reliability. The previous owner of this machine had bumped it up to 8.6, which in my opinion is a bit too far. The downside of pushing the OS a bit beyond what it really needs is the higher memory usage, which can limit the programs it's able to run. The 5300 packs a 100MHz PowerPC 603E processor, so on paper, 2/3 faster than the 33MHz 68K chips that came in the laptops before it. Looking at the numbers and thinking it's 3 times as nippy is of course a silly thing to do, as it's only one of the elements that defines a computer's speed. Another is its L2 cache, or in the case of the 5300, the complete lack of one. This omission was a flat-out bizarre decision, with low-end Mac stating that as little as 256K in the L2 department can speed up CPU operations by up to 30%. Apple produced a number of models without one, and they're pretty much all considered to be dreadful, but the 5300 is one of the more notorious examples, as it really isn't a budget Mac. The CE edition cost $6,800 upon introduction, which is over 11.2K in 2019 money. So it's of little wonder that those that brought it were underwhelmed with its performance. So does this matter today? When performance is discussed, the vast majority of individuals will refer to a machine's capabilities through the eyes of when it was released. Now that's all fair and well, but I'm of the opinion that that isn't actually entirely relevant anymore, as technically, all old Macs are slow in comparison to what came after them, and what came after that, and what came after that, and so on. A good vintage Macintosh, in my view, is one that's reliable, accessible, easy to transfer things to, and appropriately powerful for its intended use. That's why I like the Pismo so much. With that in mind, I'm going to guess that the people that would want one are likely to be few in number, and I'm omitting those that just want to add it to their shelf with all their others. The core reason for this is that it's just not good enough. Those after a pre-G3 PowerBook would be better off with its replacements, the 1400 and the 3400. They're faster, have a CD drive, and have a better screen resolution. Even then, the only practical reason to get these over a G3 is if you specifically need System 7 for something. Perhaps it appeals to some because it's the first PowerPC PowerBook, or maybe its reputation as a compromised Mac intrigues others. For those that really want one, it's worth noting that there is, let's call it a revision 2 of this laptop. Despite having been discontinued in 1996, my one has 1997 printed inside it. This indicates that it's been through Apple's refurbishment program and has had a considerable number of faulty parts replaced. I don't actually know the full extent of what they were. You know, ultimately, it's not a bad looking piece of kit, but I have to say, I haven't had a lot of fun using this thing. Most tasks need to be done the hard way, so it's unlikely that I'll keep hold of it in the medium to long term. With that then, it's time to draw this video to a close. Do share your thoughts, corrections, memories, and general musings on the machine in the comments. And if you liked this video on what is, in all fairness, a bad PowerBook, why not check out one I did a while back on a good one? Otherwise, thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and see you next time.